the question answer slide. Question number 1 is, how do we move on from a fearful environment towards fearless society, respecting law and other individuals?
Yeah, it's interesting to look at things from this perspective. So when we're talking about we, so it means we are talking about as a group of individuals, not of personal things. So what that create actually fears in our mind or in our heart. One thing is evident, that the unknown things always create fears. So if you don't know your neighbor well, you might develop a fear. But if you don't know other cultures, other religions, other things, other points of view, it's always create a fear in us. So the first thing that we need to do as a community is, or as a group of people, is to understand each other. And that understanding must not be limited from our perspective. When we try to understand someone, we always try to understand from our perspective. But we need to expand ourselves a little more, and we try to also understand people, culture, ideas from other point of view. Once we understand things from different perspective, other points of view, then we can say, yeah, we have a better understanding of things. That understanding is required. Second thing, once you understand and you take actions, the action must not be very self-centered. Yeah, it's required. We have to take action where we have to grow, we have to learn, right? But our action must not be harm others. Or in best way, I can say that our action must be such that help greater humanity to become better. So the action we are taking, the way we are understanding, is very much important to move from a fearful environment to the fearless environment. I think that help us to go towards that and respecting the law.
Thank you, sir. The second question, do you think a one-on-one relationship between student and teacher is the only way to create a fear-free environment in schools?
Yeah, I agree with the idea. One-on-one relationship is essential, but it's not the only way. But it is one of the important factors. So normally, if we look at a school setup, one thing we understand that when you teach some concepts or some idea, at that time our focus would be how I can present the idea creatively in an interesting way. So a grasp on the concept, the way we deliver, all this is important. At that time, we might not feel that one-on-one relationship is very much necessary. But when we talk about any emotional development or social development, at that time, this one-on-one relationship is very much essential. And I believe all the teachers has a unique relations with every child. There is no common relations like that. If there is some conflict arises, I think teacher will not say, yeah, this is the solutions and it fit to everybody. If it is something emotional, the teacher has to come up with the idea that address that individual's child's problem. So one-on-one relationship is very much important to create a fear-free environment where the child can express himself or herself very freely. But at the same time, there are other factors where children needs to be independent, take their own decisions. They must be sympathetic towards others. So with one-to-one relationship, other factors are required. But yeah, yes, one-to-one relationship is essential.
All right, sir. Thank you. Question 3 says, what are some suggestive ideas to bring forth the students who are slow learners match up to their counterparts?
Okay. The way we look at slow learners, some school look at slow learners, or some people look at slow learners like they take a child that he is slow and they think the child is slow in every area. There are a few other educators who look at slow learner like, yeah, this child is a little bit of difficulty in learning mathematics, but yeah, he's good at music or good at sports. So they don't tag a child as a slow learner, but they thinks this child has a difficulty in some area but good at others area. So there is two way of looking this slow learner idea. But what help us, if we look at in any way, if we want to help a child to come to the pace of the class or with others, what benchmark we set for a class, a minimum standard. So first and foremost thing is we need to provide that much of time, space and opportunity to that child, so that child can come up with his or her own pace and whatever time he require and whatever help he needed. But along with it, one other important part is there. So if you remember, many of us when we were in schools, we started disliking math, then we develop a negative attitude, then we get back in math. And when you come to university or college, and sometimes you meet someone, a professor or teacher, and you suddenly realize that कि अगर ये टीचर मेरे स्कूल में होता ना तो मैं अच्छे से मैथ मुझे आता. So it's not only about the whole and the concept or the idea or the time you spend, but what kind of relationship we make with children, that's also matter to help those children. So the one idea that is important is, according to the need of the children, we must make a relationship with the child and try to remove what is obstructing the child for learning. So whatever I am presenting, is there anything that is obstructing the child to learning? And if I remove that obstruction, then the child can come off very nicely. So these four things is required: time, space, effort, and our special relations with that child.
Thank you, sir. Question 4 states, before we make children fearless, how do we make teachers fearless?
Okay, so the way I understand this question is, there is phases. So first I have to make fearless teachers, then I have to make fearless children, then I have to make fearless other person. But I don't think like that. I think it's not like phases that you first work with someone, then work with others. It's kind of where everybody has to simultaneously, you have to work with everyone simultaneously. So whether it is teacher or whether it is children. But if we look at the questions like how to make creating an environment fearless. But when we think how to make teacher fearless, 2 and 3 important things that I experience as a part of my work is providing teachers enough freedom actually. So they can utilize their creativity, they can come up with new idea, and they can implement those ideas. But the risk as a leader, when you are a leader in a school, when they started doing all these things, there are lots of imbalance in the system. So every time your experiment or things not go in a right directions, sometimes it's go in the wrong directions. And I firmly believe that teacher never do it knowingly. It's the things that go unknowingly. But as a leader, if I provide that space, when someone confess, okay, yeah, that mistake I have done because of these things, instead of removing that person from their duty or showing some fear or doing something else, we help them not to repeat that mistake again. So there would be no fear in the environment. Second thing, we need to be open towards others' idea, and before come to a conclusions, we need to discuss the idea in a way that it can be implementable. So lots of time we discuss an idea, we frame something in our mind that this idea is not good. So in our discussion, we always try to assert a negative aspect to it, so this can't happen. But in a neutral way, we need to look all the idea come up from teachers or others and try to find a way to implement it. And that independent or freedom given to teachers will help them to fearless in that atmosphere.
Thank you, sir. The last question. Why does today's education emphasize only on the IQ of the child's growth?
Okay. Why IQ of the child's growth? One thing that suddenly comes to my mind looking at the question is our old habit. So when we were children, our school put lots of emphasis on memorizing things. So, and we thought, yeah, this is the way we learn. When we memorize most of the thing, we are most learned person or intelligent person. But at that time also the focus was in cognitive development. Rest of the part was not that much of focus. With growing time, we understood, yeah, memorization is not a good idea. We need to go little more. Now we switch to a phase where we think, yeah, no memorization, but intelligence must be developed, IQ must be developed. And now also the focus is only on the cognitive skill. Rest of the skills, there are very few schools who take a holistic approach, but most of the school emphasis on IQ. Why this kind of attitude is there? Though when we speak, we always tell we want to create a world that is different from here, better from this world. But when we come to school, we try to create children, those who can fit to the current world. And in the idea of fitting them to the current world, how they can get a job. And the way now the selection process or assessment going on, all the emphasis is on intelligence. And to fit to that criteria, we try an emphasis on IQ. But with time, as educator, we need to come out of it this idea. Yes, intelligence is required, but along with it, other aspects are equally important. And I think at present, we realize it most, not the other aspect, but emotional aspect. Because of the corona, we all are in a phase where emotional stability is more important than intelligence. So with time, I think we started realizing, and in our education system, we started paying attention to all aspects of education, or not limiting it to only cognitive development.